The polished wood and deep velvet banquettes of the Grand Hearth restaurant in the upper district of Port Crest were meant to convey success and status. Yet, as the celebration for Arthur Vance's 62nd birthday reached its peak, the atmosphere curdled, becoming heavy and strained. The moment arrived when his son, Corbin Vance Trevor, raised his glass. Corbin stood, a confident smirk pulling at his face, and delivered the toast that would sever their relationship permanently. My son Trevor raised a glass to my birthday, and smiling called my life useless. The immediate aftermath was a suffocating silence. The guests, a mixture of Corbin's affluent business friends and Arthur's old neighbors, froze, staring down at their expensive dinner plates. Corbin simply finished his pronouncement, delivered the final cut, and simply left, leaving me humiliated. Arthur felt a profound shock, knowing that Corbin did not know that I was going to give him a $2 million house. Corbin's word had landed, not as a casual insult, but as a knife, like a knife slicing through years of self-sacrifice. Arthur sat rigidly, trying to process the public execution of his dignity. The restaurant continued to buzz faintly with the clink of glasses and forced laughter, but around his table, the air turned heavy. Corbin's insult, calling his life wasted, still hung like smoke choking the room. Arthur gripped his wine glass, the stem cool against my palm, and managed to force out a smile that felt like a crack in my face. The guests remained unresponsive, their eyes fixed down. The silence screamed louder than any insult. Corbin, sensing his control, leaned back in his chair, smirking, his silk tie loosened like he'd already won. Beside him, Serena Vance Lindsay, his wife, sat perfectly still, her large diamond earrings catching the chandelier's light, and she lifted her wine glass, her lips curling just enough to show she enjoyed the show. Arthur's chest burned, but he managed to keep his voice controlled. "You done?" he asked. Low, almost a growl. Corbin laughed, the sound sharp and mean. "Done, Dad, I'm just getting started," he retorted. "You sit there acting like you're some saint, but what you got this?" He gestured dismissively toward the table, specifically pointing at the uneaten centerpiece, the half-eaten cake with happy 60-second scroll and icing. "You're nobody, always were." The cruelty was absolute. The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch, not yet. The insult solidified Arthur's resolve. He thought fiercely of the deed to the house, the $2 million representing my life savings meant for him and Lindsay. It was supposed to be his final, grand, benevolent act, my way of giving Trevor the life I never had. Now, that deed felt like a stone in my pocket, heavy and useless. Serena then delivered her calculated blow. Leaning forward, her voice was smooth as silk. "Frank, we don't need your approval. We've earned our place." She paused for dramatic effect, her eyes sweeping over him like I was a stain on her dress. "You're just here." Arthur set his glass down. The unexpected, singular clink echoed in the sudden stillness of the room. "I was going to give you something tonight," I said, my voice calm though my pulse hammered. He paused again. "A house paid in full, but after this I looked at Trevor, then Lindsay, forget it." The reaction was explosive. The room froze. A woman at the nearest table gasped. Corbin's face twisted, his cheeks flushing red, with pure shock and incredulity. "You're lying," he shouted, immediately slamming his fist down, sending wine sloshing from a glass and staining the linen tablecloth like blood. "You a house you're too cheap to buy a new car." Arthur offered no reply. He didn't need to. The truth was visible in his gaze, and Corbin saw it, which only intensified his fury. His rage boiled over. He stood, knocking his chair back with a terrible scrape. "You're pathetic, Dad, always playing the victim. I'm done with you." Serena quickly grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. "Let's go, Trev, he's not worth it." She shot Arthur one final glance, cold, dismissive, like I was garbage left on the curb. They stormed toward the door, Trevor's, Corbin's, shoes squeaking on the polished floor, and the door slammed behind them, the sound sharp as a gunshot. The remaining guests murmured and avoided Arthur's gaze. The waiter hovered, uncertain, then started clearing the wreckage, the crumpled napkins, half-eaten food, and that damn cake no one touched. Arthur remained seated, alone, enduring the relentless tick of the restaurant's clock drilling into my skull. This was a reward for 62 years, a son who spat his face, and a daughter-in-law who considered him a relic. He paid the bill, his hand steady despite the storm inside. The night air hit me as I stepped outside, cool and sharp. Arthur did not go home. He walked, the city lights of Port Crest blurring as my mind churned. Corbin's words replayed, each one a cut deeper than the last. But amidst the pain, something else stirred a memory faint but vivid of a promise I made long ago. It was a promise to himself. That evening was not the end. It was a beginning. I decided that Trevor and his cold wife Lindsay would pay for their neglect. Revenge would not be hasty. It would be just, and I knew where to start. Arthur eventually reached his house, which was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses on your chest. He sat in the living room, illuminated only by a lamp that flickered when the wind rattled the windows. In his lap rested the family album, its leather cover worn from years of handling. He opened it. There they were. Me, Ellen, and Trevor smiling at some long-gone picnic. Corbin's Trevor's. Tiny hand clutched a balloon, his grin wide enough to break your heart. Arthur traced the image, his thumb smudging the edge. He wondered, where had that boy gone? His mind slipped back to the day he sold his old Honda, a car, I loved it, to pay for Corbin's college, which Arthur couldn't afford. The cash felt like a betrayal. That night, Corbin hugged him, his voice thick with promise. I'll make you proud, Dad. I'll pay you back. I believe him, God. I believe him. Arthur then remembered working double shifts at the firm, crunching numbers until my eyes burned to cover his tuition. When Corbin's first venture, a tech startup he swore would change the world, failed, Arthur bailed him out, wired him $50,000 without a second thought. Corbin called him his hero then, saying he'd never forget it. The album felt heavier now. Arthur turned the page to Alara's, Ellen's, funeral. Corbin, Trevor, stood apart checking his phone while I shook hands with mourners. He didn't stay long, mumbling. Got a meeting, Dad, leaving Arthur alone in the empty church. Arthur realized he hadn't cried that day. I didn't know how. The silence in the house intensified, broken only by the creak of the floorboards. Arthur closed the album, his fingers lingering on the cover. He calculated the cost. All those years I told myself it was worth it. Every late night, every missed vacation, every dream I shelved they were for him, for Trevor. And the reward? A son who called me a failure in front of a room full of strangers. His gaze lifted to the clock Alara, Ellen, loved. Its ticking was relentless, each second a reminder of time I couldn't get back. Arthur stood, letting the album slide to the couch. Enough, he decided. He had spent too long waiting for Corbin to become the son he raised. He wasn't that boy anymore. Maybe he never was. He crossed the cold floor to his desk. His laptop sat there. It screamed dark. He opened it, the blue light harsh against the dim room. His hands hovered over keys. He realized he was not going to sit in the suffocating silence. Anymore, not tonight, not ever again. The glow of the laptop illuminated his face, casting shadows in the study. The clock on the shelf ticked, steady as a heartbeat urging me forward. He typed Corbin's Trevor's name, his fingers moving deliberate. Articles immediately appeared, linking his name to a string of business deals, each shakier than the last. One headline confirmed his suspicion. Local entrepreneur faces scrutiny over unpaid debts. Arthur leaned closer, a grim smile tugging at my lips. So Trevor was in trouble good. He scrolled, quickly piecing together Corbin's financial disaster. His latest fintech startup was bleeding money. Investors were pulling out. Arthur recalled warning him. It sounded shaky, only to be, laugh me off, call me out of touch. Corbin had told him to stick to my boring spreadsheets. Arthur reflected. I'd let go. I always let go. Not anymore. He dialed Giles, Jack, his old financial consultant friend. Giles picked up, his voice grawly but warm. Arthur requested details on Corbin's business, insisting, he's not my kid anymore. Giles promised to call back after digging up what he could. Arthur hung up, his pulse steady for the first time in hours. He pulled a crisp notepad from the drawer and wrote in precise ink, Trevor Dett's bad deals. Then, Lindsay Image social media. Serena Lindsay was an influencer whose life was a curated lie on Instagram. Arthur knew her type. People who live for likes, not truth. Her image was her vulnerability. One crack in that facade, and she'd crumble. His pen scratched quietly as he listed his initial strategy. Quiet moves, nothing flashy. He emphasized, I wasn't some cartoon villain. This was about justice. It was about showing them he wasn't the nobody they thought. He had accumulated a fortune through decades of quiet work. They had squandered their opportunities. They'd underestimated me. That was their mistake. He closed the study door. The click sound solid final. The study felt transformed, like a war room instead of refuge. The clock ticked on, but it no longer tortured him. It was now counting down to something new. Arthur was in the Port Crest Library, surrounded by stacks of financial journals. The scent of old paper and dust clung to the air. His laptop hummed, showing a database of business filings where Corbin's, Trevor's, name glared back at me. Arthur's old skill was fully operational. Corbin's company was a house of cards, big promises, no substance. He found an article buried in a trade journal detailing a shady, predatory loan Corbin had taken out to prop up his failing startup. The terms were the kind that bury you. Arthur allowed himself a thin and sharp smile. Corbin's recklessness was his opportunity. He called Giles, Jack, again. Giles confirmed. It's a mess high interest tied, some sketchy firm. He's missed payments word. Is there circling? Crucially, Giles added, there's talk of an ethics probe, something about fudge numbers. Giles asked if Arthur was sure he wanted to proceed. I'm sure, Arthur replied, his tone flat. An ethics probe combined with the crushing debt would ruin Corbin. Arthur copied the article about the deal, the pages feeling like ammunition. He then returned to Serena Lindsay. Her Instagram was a shrine to perfection, but the comments whispered of brands dropping her whispers of inflated follower counts. One scandal, and her image would crack. He stacked the documents and placed them in a folder. The clock read 3:17 p.m. Time was moving. Arthur went to a dim cafe booth, masking his laptop's location with a VPN. He carefully drafted an email to Mr. Sterling Hargrove, a major investor in Corbin's deal, known for cutting losses fast. The subject line was simple: concerns about your investment. Attached were scanned copies of the predatory loan agreement and the damning article. There was no signature, no trace, just facts. Arthur hovered over the send button. He thought of Corbin's smirk, his words calling Arthur's life wasted. Let's see him laugh now. He clicked. His phone buzzed instantly. Corbin's name flashed. Arthur let it ring twice before answering, his voice composed. What you bastard, Corbin hissed, his words slurring with rage. You sent that email, didn't you? Hargrove just pulled out my deals tanking. Arthur leaned back. I don't know what you're talking about. I said each word measured. Sounds like your mess caught up with you. Corbin shouted, demanding money, and Arthur heard a crash. Something glass, maybe a bottle. You're trying to ruin me. You're doing that yourself, Arthur said, and hung up. His pulse was steady, my hands cool. He checked his inbox. Mr. Sterling's assistant confirmed. Mr. Hargrove is reviewing materials and has paused all commitments. The cafe's clock ticked on. Corbin was scrambling, and I was just starting. Serena was next. Her sponsors wouldn't like what I'd found about her authentic brand. Arthur closed his laptop and stepped outside, a small recorder in my pocket, its weight a promise of more to come. The knock on Arthur's door was sharp, like a hammer on steel. He knew who it was. The recorder in his pocket was already running. The living room was dark, lit only by a flickering lamp that cast long shadows. He opened the door to face Corbin, whose face was red and twisted, and Serena, her eyes cold as frost. The scent of her sharp perfume hit me like an insult. You've gone too far, Corbin spat, pushing past Arthur, his shoes scuffing the floor. Serena followed, her heels clicking, her purse clutched like a shield. You tanked my deal, Corbin accused, his voice low, dangerous. Haro's gone, and now the bank's calling. You owe me, Dad. Fix this. Arthur crossed his arms. Oh, you after what you said you called me nothing. Serena stepped forward, using her smooth, practiced tone. Frank, let's be reasonable. We're family. Family, Arthur countered, his voice like ice. Family doesn't humiliate each other in front of strangers. Corbin slammed a hand on the wall. Stop the games, give me the money to cover the loan, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a selfish old man you are. Arthur didn't flinch. The recorder silently captured every word. You're not getting a dime, he stated. You made your choices. Serena's mask finally slipped, her voice turning sharp. You're pathetic, Frank, hoarding your money while we struggle you're no father. She grabbed Corbin. Let's go, he's useless. Corbin glared. This isn't over, I'll bury you. They stormed out, the door slamming, the sound echoing in the quiet house. Arthur pulled out the recorder. The red light was steady. He played it back. Corbin's threats and Serena's venom were captured perfectly. He opened his laptop, determining that Trevor and Lindsay thought they could bully me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Arthur visited Richard, his legal counsel, in his cramped office, which smelled of ink and old coffee. Richard plugged in a USB drive containing the recording. Richard warned, This is dynamite, Frank, but dangerous. Arthur insisted, I'm not playing, I said, my voice low steady. They cross a line. I'm just evening the score. Richard outlined a plan, anonymous leaks using third parties, because Arthur was too close to this. The recording would discredit Serena. The financial pressure would tighten the noose on Corbin's creditors. Arthur had spent years untangling financial knots for clients. Now I'd unravel my son's life. Richard ensured it would be airtight. Back home, Arthur meticulously carried out the first step, alerting Corbin's, Trevor's, creditors about his missed payments using untraceable public records. Richard confirmed the letters were drafted. No trace till you send it tomorrow, and they'll be on Trevor like vultures. Arthur picked up the envelope. Addressed to an officer who would never know his name. Its weight, solid final. The next morning, the newspaper confirmed the success. Local entrepreneur faces financial ruin. Corbin Trevor's name was in bold, his photo grainy but unmistakable. Arthur felt a quiet satisfaction settling in my chest. The clock ticked, each sound and nail in his coffin. Giles Jack called, his voice grim. It's a bloodbath. Frank Trevor's office is a ghost town. Creditors froze his accounts. He's done. Arthur replied, Good. Giles added that Corbin was fighting with Serena Lindsay, who was screaming about her brand, how he's dragging her down. Giles reported, They're cracking. Arthur reflected on Corbin's past arrogance, calling him too cautious dad. Arthur affirmed, Cautious, that caution was my weapon now. Arthur moved to the final blow. Social media buzzed with Trevor's financial downfall, but Serena's profile still maintained a facade of calm. Arthur knew one move and her sponsors would scatter. He sent the audio recording to Bethany Kay, a rival influencer with a grudge and a big audience. The blogger, Kay, moved swiftly. She posted the recording, and Serena's voice was clear. He's useless, pathetic. The clip spread like fire, racking up views. Brands dropped Serena, Lindsay. Within hours, their logos vanishing from her profile. Arthur allowed a small smile form. She had once called him invisible, he thought. Invisible not anymore. Serena posted a shaky video claiming a misunderstanding, but her mascara was smudged and the comments tore her apart. Giles Jack called, Lindsay's done. Frank, no sponsors, no invite, she's radioactive. Arthur clarified, No game, I said, my voice, even just consequences. Arthur had planned every step, and it was working, but he felt he wasn't done, not yet. A hard and urgent knock broke the silence. Arthur crossed the room, his steps steady, to the door, the clock on the wall ticking like a metronome. He opened it to find Corbin, Trevor, and Serena Lindsay, soaked from the rain, their faces drawn and desperate. Serena's makeup was streaked down her cheeks, her eyes red and hollow. The scent of wet asphalt followed them. Dad, Corbin began, his voice cracking. We're sorry, we were wrong, please. Serena, clutching her purse, pleaded, You've got to help us. Arthur stood firm, the memory of Corbin's birthday toast burning. Your life's a waste. Help you, he said, his voice low even. After what you did. Corbin cried. We lost everything. You did this, didn't you? But I'm your son. You can't just destroy me. Serena made one last manipulative effort. Frank, we're family. You're better than this. Let's fix it together. Arthur stepped back, his gaze hard, letting the clock's ticking dominate. You made your choices, he stated. You spat on everything I gave you, family. You don't know the meaning of it. Corbin lunged in desperation, but Arthur stopped him cold. Serena hissed, You'll regret this, Frank, though her voice trembled. Arthur opened the door wider, letting the rain fall. They hesitated, then turned. Get out, Arthur commanded. You're not welcome here. The door closed with a heavy thud, locking them out. The silence that followed was thick, unbroken except for the clock's steady rhythm. Arthur walked the mantel and touched the photo of Emily, Ellen/Alara. You'd have hated this, Em, he murmured, but it's done. The wait was gone. It was final. The sun blazed over the Port Crest Community Center. Arthur stood at a podium, a bronze plaque gleaming behind him. Emily Greenwood Foundation. The air smelled of fresh grass and hope. A nearby clock tower ticked, its sound faint but present, a reminder of time moving forward. This foundation, Arthur said, his voice steady, is for families who need a hand up for kids who deserve a chance. It's Emily's dream, and today it's real. He felt he was here now, honoring her. A young mother approached, thanking him, her son clutching a scholarship letter. This changes everything, she said, her eyes shining. An organizer, Paul, leaned in. Heard your son's in rough shape skip town, they say. Arthur shrugged. That's a story, not mine. The foundation was funded with the millions from his savings. Arthur walked to his car. A single envelope waited in the mailbox, the handwriting unmistakably Trevor's. Arthur slipped it into his pocket, unopened. Later, sitting by the memorial stone for Emily, Arthur held the letter, its edges creased. He had read it once, a jumble of excuses, and a plea. Meet me, Dad, I can fix this. Arthur shook his head. Fix what? The betrayal, the disdain. There was nothing left to mend. He struck a match. The flame caught fast, turning the letter into ash that drifted to the ground. The fire felt cleansing, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. He thought of Emily's dream of seeing Italy, the cobblestone streets' warm cafes. Now I'd go for both of us. He had booked one ticket to Rome, I said, next month. He stood, touching the cold stone where Emily's name was carved. I did it, Em, he whispered. I'm free. Corbin and Serena were gone, their lives a distant echo. They'd built their ruin, I'd built my peace. Arthur drove into the dusk, Rome waiting, its promise of a life unburdened.